It can make you feel like you're not being seen or heard or valued. That's a place that you never want to be in. Just letting people know, like, hey, I don't really rock with that. If it's people that's really meant to be in your life, they'll make the necessary adjustments. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's me. So if you're like me and you struggle to set boundaries with people that you love and care about the most, or even if you just struggle to set boundaries with people on a day-to-day basis, at work, or I don't know, your neighbor, with family, friends, no matter who it is. I know for me personally, I struggle to set boundaries with people. It's something that I'm continuously working on, and it's just because mainly I have such a big heart. I have such a giving spirit and such an empathetic spirit. So sometimes I overgive in situations where I don't need to overgive, or somebody's not pouring into me as much as I'm pouring into them. And sometimes, if I'm being honest, I just don't like confrontation because I struggle with anger. I'm an Aries, I'm a bit of a hothead. So once I get to the point where I'm angry, sometimes I say things I don't mean. Sometimes I regret things that I said to people. So I try not to get to that point, but sometimes conflict is inevitable and you have to confront things, especially if it has to do with your boundaries. So why is boundary setting important? So boundary setting is important because if you aren't setting boundaries with people, people can take advantage of that, and inevitably so people will take advantage. You have to teach people how to treat you so that you are protecting your peace at all costs. If you're not communicating your boundaries with people and people are constantly violating them, then it can create resentment within relationships. It can drain you. It can make you feel like you're not being seen or heard or valued. That's a place that you never want to be in. Just letting people know, like, hey, I don't really rock with that, and can we change that? Can we adjust that? If it's people that's really meant to be in your life, they'll make the necessary adjustments. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 tips, that's 10, 5 tips on how to set healthy boundaries. So the first tip is probably gonna be a little bit like duh, but it's really knowing what your boundaries are. This is the part where you really need to do some deep self-reflection. Open that third eye, really think about what your boundaries are, because if you're not really aware of them, how can you tell people what they are? Sometimes you may not even realize that that's a boundary of yours until it's being crossed. Sometimes you gonna have to hurt people's feelings to tell somebody that this is a boundary of yours that's being crossed. Like I said, it's just important that you know your boundaries so you can communicate them with people so that people will treat you the way that you feel honored and valued. The second step would obviously be setting the boundary. Setting that boundary is probably gonna be the most difficult part. Why? Because it's actually gonna require you to have the uncomfortable conversation. And it doesn't always have to disrupt the peace, but sometimes it can. So now that you've recognized your boundary, now it's time to communicate them clearly. Despite how they may react, we can't control others' reactions to us. The only thing we can control is ourselves. It's not on us to worry about somebody else's reaction to us setting our boundaries. Sometimes people may react to it in a positive way, sometimes people may not. Communicating your boundaries clearly and effectively is essential to maintaining your peace. If you don't communicate these boundaries effectively and then people are constantly violating them, that's gonna disrupt how you feel moving through your day-to-day life, because now you're out of balance because somebody has harmed you in a way where you feel disrespected, violated, misused, or mistreated, or whatever the boundary may be. It could be so many different boundaries, especially when you're dealing with friends or relationships, romantic partnerships. Those can be the most difficult ones to set boundaries in, because when we love people, it's just hard sometimes to stand firm on a boundary that you know is something that you need for your own peace, but you know that you setting this boundary is going to create tension, right? Because now you're telling somebody that a behavior that they're comfortable with doing is no longer acceptable. You know, it makes people uncomfortable. The same way it's making them uncomfortable by you communicating that boundary is the same way it made you uncomfortable by receiving that behavior that was violated. Hey, it boils down to, like, do you care more about their feelings or your own? You know what I'm saying? So the third step is honoring the boundary, doing the hard work. Once you've communicated the boundary, if it gets violated after that point, you have to stand firm on that and honor that boundary. Like, hey, whoa, cut, time out. This is something that I told you I don't want no more. This is something I told you I'm not tolerating anymore. Whatever the case may be, you have to honor that boundary. You got to stand firm on it. And it may take a little time depending on who that person is. Like I said, if this is somebody that you have allowed to do something over and over again consistently, you setting that boundary, it's not going to change overnight. It may take them a little while to adjust to it, because sometimes people aren't violating boundaries because of intention most of the time. They're violating it because they either aren't aware of it because you haven't communicated it. But if you have communicated it and they violate it again, you just have to stand firm on it, because they may not be intentionally trying to violate it. That just may be like a part of who they are, a part of their personality, or once again, it's just something that it's a habit. It's something that they're used to. And just adding to that, you know, just hold space within yourself as to why that is a boundary that you're honoring. Remind yourself why you set that boundary and why you're continuing to honor it. Journal about it, meditate about it, really just sit and embrace it. And the fourth step is really just a continuation of step 3, continuing to honor that boundary after you set it. You know, just remembering that practice makes perfect, because it's going to be easier said than done. Just get into that point where you're confident within yourself so that you can constantly reiterate your boundaries when they're being crossed, or if a boundary is crossed again in the future, you don't have any hesitation with reminding that person, this is how I want to be treated. It's a daily practice that you're developing to remove bad habits. You're recognizing, this is how I want to be treated moving forward. This is how I'm going to communicate that across all of my relationships. It's going to take time before you get to that point where you do it effortlessly. The fifth and final tip, take a step back and look at like how far you come. If the boundary setting has been working within your relationships, or if it hasn't, or places where you've set boundaries, if they're being honored, or if they're not being honored. After you created this boundary with this person, did the relationship get better over time, or did you kind of like lose contact with that person? It might be time to reevaluate those relationships. Is this a person that you need in your life? Is this the person that you want in your life? Because if they can't honor your boundaries, they're placing their own needs above yours. You know, so you just gotta be mindful of that and take a step back and reflect upon how these relationships have altered after you set these boundaries. Just asking yourself, am I standing firm on my boundaries? Are my boundaries being honored after I've set them? Am I compromising on my boundaries? Am I backsliding some way, somehow in certain areas? And just doing a check-in with yourself and holding yourself accountable, because that's important too. Sometimes we can get these ideas, we can watch these videos, you have to set these boundaries, yeah, and you tell somebody your boundary once, and then that was the last time you ever heard of it, and people just go back to treating you the way that they once treated you before you set the boundary. Yeah, no, that's not cool. You gotta always check back in with yourself, like, am I constantly standing up for myself and speaking up for things that are crossing my boundaries? And sometimes it's hard, because sometimes you set a boundary with somebody and it could create tension between you and that person. Either they gonna get with it or they gonna get lost, because if you set a boundary and that person cannot honor that boundary or refuses to honor that boundary, then that person doesn't deserve your time or your energy. And sometimes it can be hard, you know, if you're grieving the loss of a relationship because you set a boundary that they couldn't honor, and you may not want a relationship to end, or you may not want to remove that person from your life or take a step back from that person. But no, like, you got to be willing to stand up for yourself no matter what the cost is. If that means you got to walk away, that's what you're gonna have to do. If that means you got to talk to that person a little bit less, that's what you're gonna have to do. If that means you got to block that person, that's what you're gonna have to do. Block is a little bit extreme. I don't know, everybody's situation may be different, but you know, sometimes it's happened. I didn't have to block people before too, because I kept telling them, like, stop texting my phone crazy like that. You got one more time to text my phone crazy like that. And they kept texting my phone crazy, and I hit that block button, okay? Because I'm not finna keep playing these games, bro. Like, it's only been 2 people that I had to block. One person still blocked to this day. The other person, you know what I'm saying, we back cool. On a little more of a calmer note, sometimes you set boundaries and they cause the friendship, the relationship, whatever, to end after that, because you set a boundary and that person wasn't ready to step up to do what it takes, or to be the person that you needed them to be. Here's what it is. There's no love lost. It don't mean that that person don't care about you. It could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It don't mean that that friend isn't your friend. It could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. One of my favorite sayings that helps me accept people for who they are and where they are is that a person can only meet you as far as they've met themselves. Like, a person can only meet you as far as they've been evolved. Like, they haven't evolved past the point where they can recognize and take a step back and look at themselves. Hey, I'm wrong. Hey, I need to check myself. I might lose this person if I continue to do these things. I promise you, when you set these boundaries, your life is going to improve so much. Our life is a direct reflection of our mental. Thoughts create our reality. If you're constantly in this mental space of confusion and dysfunction and chaos, that's what's gonna reflect back at you. That's what's gonna manifest into your world. If you're in a place where you're at peace, where you feel valued, where you feel loved, where you feel understood, where you feel like people honor you for who you are and the way you want to be treated, then that's what's gonna surround you. That's what's going to fill the space around you, because that's what you have within yourself. As above, so below. As within, so without. All of this is yin yang, my brother, my sister. You feel me? And I'm gonna just leave it there, because I feel like I didn't talk enough. If you like this video, please thumbs it up, comment on it, like, subscribe. Most importantly, if this is something that you struggle with, comment below how you started to learn to set boundaries, or what is something that stops you from setting boundaries. I want to know. Let's have a conversation about it. I love talking about stuff like this. So yeah, let's talk about it in the comments. And if there's another video that you want to see that's similar to this, or if you want to get more tips on how to set boundaries, or I can go into deeper details. Okay, until next time, I will see y'all. Peace, love, and light.